In a forgotten era wrapped in the golden glow of legend, within the flourishing and fragrant kingdom of Bella Fleur, named after the endless gardens blooming with bluebell, lily, and star-petaled roses, there lived a princess unlike any other, who had ever graced the royal halls, a young girl named Sarah, whose laughter seemed to echo through the marbled palace corridors like warm bells, and whose bright eyes reflected not only the majesty of her birthright but the gentle, irrepressible fire of a dreamer. She was a child adored by every servant, knight, scholar, and guard who passed her way, for she possessed a kindness so natural it felt as intrinsic to her as her heartbeat. Yet even among all her charms and dignities, the most remarkable thing about her was her deep, boundless love for cooking. A passion so uncontainable that even the palace cook-seasoned veterans with decades of culinary mastery found themselves bewildered, amused, and impressed as she wandered the kitchens like a small whirlwind of creativity and curiosity, sampling spices, studying textures, inhaling fragrances, and scribbling excited notes in the small recipe notebook she guarded like a treasure chest. Even as a child, she would lift lids off steaming pots with a flourish, nibble at dough, and declare with disarming confidence, "These look amazing." And moments later, they taste amazing too. Yes, I know, and though her father, as King Aldrich would tease her for her bold declarations, the truth was plain enough. The little princess had a gift as natural as sunlight. She daydreamed about food the way young scholars dreamed about faraway adventures or knights fantasized about heroic quests, losing herself in thoughts of ginger lemon cakes or lavender honey scones, even in places where such musings were hardly appropriate, like during lessons where her royal tutor would squint at her homework scroll and say, baffled, "Princess, you were supposed to write about the life cycle of bees, and instead you have written a recipe for a ginger lemon cake." And Sarah, with a sheepish grin, would scratch her head and say, "Oops," while the tutor sighed in that familiar fond exasperation reserved only for her. And whenever anyone wondered where she'd wandered off to, because she had a habit of vanishing in search of new flavors or forgotten spice jars, there was only one answer: "Where's Sarah?" "The kitchens," someone would reply without even glancing up, and they would be right, for she'd be there way past midnight sometimes, crafting pastries for mythical beings like Santa, whom she insisted deserved fresh coconut macaroons at precisely 12 a.m. When confronted by her father with, "Sarah, are you baking cookies?" she would puff proudly and say, "These aren't cookies, father. They're coconut macaroons." The crispiness of gently flaked coconut combined with the rich sweetness of milk and the warm, subtle breath of vanilla. And her father would stare, torn between admiration and disbelief at the girl who treated culinary arts like sacred poetry. As the years passed, Sarah's skills blossomed beyond all expectations. With every new dish she crafted, soups with delicate layers of warmth, breads that unfolded in soft golden spirals, and desserts that melted like enchantments, her reputation grew, and the people began to say that the princess was becoming one of the greatest cooks Bella Fleur had ever known. One warm evening, when sunset spilled pink and amber hues across the kingdom, Sarah visited one of her favorite places outside the palace, Madame Pot's humble soup stall, a cozy little wooden nook near the marketplace where the air always carried delicate aromas of ginger, herbs, and hand-chopped vegetables simmering in broth. But when she arrived, she found Madame Pot standing somberly with a cloth wrapped around her hands, gazing at her pots with sorrow. "Are you closing down?" Sarah asked in shock, and Madame Potts, with a sigh weighed down by years of exhaustion, nodded. "Yes, my dear, the ingredients are too costly. I can barely keep the stall open. But I suppose I can still make one last bowl for my favorite customer." As she began chopping vegetables, each cut made with tender dedication, Sarah watched, mesmerized. "The smell of ginger and herbs is so fresh," she said softly, seeing not just a soup, but a lifetime of love poured into every movement. When she tasted the final bowl, warmth bloomed inside her like a small sun. But her joy crumbled when Madame Potts revealed, "It's not just me, love. Mr. Buns the baker, Miss Berry Blossom the tea shop owner, even Chef Rigatoni, they're all closing down." This revelation pierced Sarah to her core. That night, while she worked in the palace kitchens, mixing batter but thinking of shuttered doors and empty shops, her mind spun in frantic circles. "With your skills," one of the head chefs teased, "maybe you should forget the crown and start a restaurant." His words sparked a fire. "That's it!" Sarah exclaimed. "That's what I'll do." The chef nearly dropped a ladle. "You can't forfeit the crown," but Sarah grinned. "I'm keeping my crown, but I'll also start a restaurant." The very next morning, with royal determination and the open-heartedness that defined her, she went to all the struggling shopkeepers. "Work with me," she told them. "I'll cover the costs. You just cook." With tears of relief and gratitude, they agreed. Soon, under Sarah's guidance, a magnificent new restaurant blossomed at the edge of the marketplace, with soft lanterns, enchanted wooden beams, and a scent so inviting that crowds gathered long before opening hours. People from every corner of Bella Fleur flocked to taste Madame Pot's soups again, to sip Miss Berry Blossom's calming teas, to enjoy Chef Rigatoni's masterful pastas. Laughter filled the dining hall as music drifted from nearby bars. Sarah moved from kitchen to kitchen like a comet, checking every pot, tasting every sauce, smiling with pride as she watched her team flourish. The fame of the restaurant spread quickly, so much so that one day a rugged group of unruly strangers barged inside, startling the customers. "Oh dear," Miss Blossom whispered nervously. "I'm so sorry, Princess, about them." But Sarah shook her head. "Our motto is to serve every customer who is handsome or hungry," she corrected, cheeks pink. The leader, a fierce-looking man, smirked. "Wonderful. I'll take the chestnut soup." When the food arrived, the group devoured it with vigor, and their leader's eyes widened. The nuttiness, this earthy flavor, it's magnificent. Madame Pot smiled nervously. "The princess made that one herself." "The chef is a princess?" he said, stunned. "Oh yes," Miss Blossom chirped. "Our head chef is none other than Princess Sarah." He demanded to meet her immediately. In the kitchen, Sarah was rushing between stovetops when the man approached. "Are you Princess Sarah?" "Why, yes. What may I do for you?" The man's expression shifted from admiration to menace. "You may keep very silent. If you scream, my men will destroy your village, your restaurant, and everything you hold dear." Sarah stiffened. "Who are you?" "Ever heard of the Fire Dough Bandits? I am their leader, Cobb." "Cobb," she repeated slowly. "Like corn on the cob?" "Silence!" he snapped, cheeks flushing. He demanded a huge sum of gold or the kingdom would suffer. Sarah's heart pounded, not for herself, but for her people, her restaurant, her friends. But then a spark lit inside her. "Fine," she said. "I'll concede, if you defeat me in a cooking battle." "A cooking battle? Unless," she added slyly, "you're not as good as you claim. Chefs keep their honor, even thieves." "Who pretend to be chefs." Cobb bristled, offended. "Fine. But if I win, I take everything." Sarah prepared in secret for days, practicing until exhaustion blurred her vision. One night, frustrated with herself, she took a walk and found Cobb sitting calmly by a stream. "Princess," he said smugly. "Here to admit defeat? Never." She eyed his ingredients. "Are those what you're using?" "Yep, but only my beautiful eyes get to see them." "Yours will be busy losing." She teased him, but then he said something unexpected. "I used to be a chef, you know." Sarah blinked. "You?" He nodded, staring at the water. "Not to brag, but I was a good one. A vengeful critic destroyed my reputation. Ruined me. My real name is not Cobb." "It's Cresswater," Sarah gasped. "Chef Cresswater? I've read your recipes." "You were brilliant," he shrugged bitterly. "No one would work with me after that, so I turned to bandit life." Sarah felt her heart soften. She had prepared to face a villain, not a fallen chef with a broken past. When the day of the battle finally arrived, crowds gathered in anticipation. Cobb smirked confidently. "I trained under the best chefs. Good luck beating me." The battle began with clattering pans and sizzling pots. Sarah kept her ingredients simple. Onions, tomatoes, beans, polenta. Cobb scoffed. "What ordinary dishes she making?" But Sarah cooked with calm purpose-layering flavor, respecting the ingredients, pouring intention and love into every stir. When the judges tasted the dishes, both were spectacular, but the polenta and beans captured their hearts. Sarah won, Cobb raged, insisting she cheated. Taste it, she said. He did and froze, overwhelmed by its warmth, richness, purity. With what intention did you cook? Sarah asked gently. To win, he admitted. I cook to nourish. To bring joy, that is the heart of a chef, she said softly. Cobb lowered his head. I've forgotten what that's like. Keeping his word, he prepared to leave with his men forever. But Sarah stopped him. Wait, what if I help you open a restaurant? Here, in Bella Fleur. Cobb stared, trembling. You would do that? She nodded. You deserve to cook. Again, tears filled his eyes. Soon, Chef Cresswater's own restaurant opened in another part of the kingdom, small at first, but filled with hope. He practiced smiling at customers, though awkwardly. Sarah visited often, offering help, encouragement, and teasing remarks about his beautiful eyes, which made him flustered. And so the kingdom was saved, the bandits transformed, the people nourished, and Princess Sarah's fame spread even further, not because she was royalty, but because she lived with passion, bravery, and the unshakable belief that food cooked with love could heal wounds deeper than hunger. And in Bella Fleur, they say that if you walk through the marketplace on a warm evening, you can still smell the herbs, the ginger, the simmering soups, and the laughter of two chefs rebuilding. Their dreams proving that with courage, compassion, and a touch of culinary magic, absolutely anything is possible.